stocks plummeted last week. President Trump's 10% tariffs are now in effect. Cameras caught a glimpse of President Trump as he left his Florida golf club Saturday. But in a post on Truth Social, the president called the changes an economic revolution and told Americans to hang tough. The crowds at hands-off rallies had countless messages, but one shared mission: to protest the policies of President Trump.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. There's a saying I've been thinking a lot about lately. Dictators always look good until the last 5 minutes. It's pretty obvious to me that we are approaching that moment. Even for the MAGA diehards, it's tough to explain away the insanity of Donald Trump's Liberation Day. And over the weekend, we saw millions of Americans across the country show up for the largest mass protests I've ever seen. I emceed the rally in Cleveland, and I gotta tell you, it's been a long time since I have felt that kind of energy, that kind of hope. For the past few months, when people have asked me, what do we do? Where do we turn for inspiration? I've said that our moment will come. And for now, look at South Korea, where millions of ordinary people took to the streets after their president tried to declare martial law. I say, look at Hungary, where millions are standing up right now to a would-be autocrat. But now, I get to say, look at Boise, look at Portland, both of them, look at Cleveland. Most importantly, look at the thousands of small towns and rural communities across the country where good people are rising up and saying enough. For the past few weeks, I've pinned a Kamala Harris quote on my Blue Sky page. It says, "Courage is contagious." We saw that this weekend. But we need to add a corollary, because watching as our Republican representatives ignore their constituents and abandon town halls, watching Donald Trump and Elon Musk act as if this uprising isn't happening, courage is indeed contagious. We're seeing it all around us. But so is cowardice. The coward-in-chief has surrounded himself with sycophants whose only qualification seems to be an equal measure of cowardice, a total inability to confront their mad king. But we have them on the run. Trump and Musk and the cowards around them are in their last 5 minutes. And so I want to issue a call to action. If you have ever thought about speaking out, now's the time. More protests are coming. If you've ever considered joining an activist organization like Mobilize or Indivisible, now is the time. And if you've ever considered running for office at any level, now is the time. On that note, you want to hear what Emily Cherniak has to say. She runs New Politics, an organization devoted to recruiting and training a new generation of political leaders to win public office. Her track record of success at all levels of government will blow you away. I'll let Emily tell you the rest, but if you have ever thought of running for office, email us at info@thekenharbaughshow.com, and we'll be sure to put you in touch with the team at New Politics. Here's Emily Cherniak.
Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. My guest today is Emily Cherniak, the founder and CEO of New Politics, which has done more than any organization in America to recruit and train service-minded candidates for public office. Great to have you on the show, Em.
I'm excited to be here, Ken. Thanks.
I should probably acknowledge that you are the reason I ran for Congress a lifetime ago, and that most of the younger, values-driven military vets in Congress are there because of you, but your portfolio extends well beyond Congress and even beyond veterans. Can you give us the overview of what New Politics does?
Yeah, so New Politics was created originally to recruit, we say servant leaders, which are people who sort of put the country and community first, but we believe that they come from the world of service, so AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, military veterans. So we recruit them, we help support them throughout the process, almost like a political Sherpa, kind of guiding them along the way. A lot of our people don't come from politics. They don't know the language, the framing, how things are set up. So we really help navigate that as sort of an unpaid objective advisor that really wants to set them up for success and help them win. And so that is the work we do. And we fundamentally believe that if we had more people who put the country and community first in politics, our country would look really different than it is now.
Tell me about this recruiting drive that you're launching, because I think there's this assumption amongst most Americans that running for office is something other people do. It's out of reach. It's too hard. It's too alien. We look at our representatives, unfortunately, as sort of a different type of person. They're not accessible enough. Can you break that myth for us?
Yeah. And I made that assumption too back in the day. I thought, it was something that I was a service person. I did AmeriCorps, and I sort of made a false choice that I was like, I'm a service person, I'm not a political person, and divided those two things. And I also think a lot of us, and I assume this too, that people were just recruited to run, and I just wasn't asked and I wasn't recruited. So therefore, I shouldn't do it. And I think what I realized going through my first campaign over 15 years ago was that it's a crazy space. It's actually, people are self-selected. There's nobody recruiting based on leadership, like experience. And that we say up in New Politics, the lack of political leadership in this country is not for a lack of leaders in this country. There are amazing leaders in this country. They've done service and they should be serving politically, but no one is asking them. Because I think a lot of us who serve think it's really narcissistic and self-interested to say like, oh, I want to run. It feels really weird. And so I think being asked and being recruited is really like creates like a different and more inclusive framing for people to get involved in politics at all levels.
It's almost a catch-22 in that the gunners, the ones who want it really badly, tend to get it, but aren't really suited for leadership. Whereas the servant leaders, as you put it, are the ones we really need, but in many cases, the least likely to put themselves on that pedestal.
Yeah, there's a book called Corruptible by Brian Klaas that was really like a game-changing moment for me when I read it, because his theory was, and he basically interviewed, dictators and really, really evil people around the world. And what he concluded was politics attracts people who have really not the right qualities that we need in politics to serve others. And the people that, like you said, the servant leaders, they're really repelled by the environment of politics. And so the opposite is happening right now. And so we have to really flip that.
Well, that gets to my next question, which is another assumption that I think many Americans make, which is that the system corrupts anyone that it sucks in, and that good people can't survive in national politics today. Maybe they can at the local level, and I do want to talk about the importance of that. But how do you answer those who say, look, no matter how values-driven and service-minded your candidate is, once they get into this national political system, once they make it to DC, they're going to be like everyone else? Yeah,
it's a great point, Ken. And a lot of people have said that to me over the years. And I will say, as someone who's been in this space now for over a decade, that's just an excuse. It's not real. And I think what we've seen in leaders like Abigail Spanberger and Alyssa Slotkin and Seth Moulton and Pat Ryan and Jason Crow, they are still the Jedis. They have not gone to the dark side. And I think if you come in as a leader, clear about who you are and your core values, it's very hard to be corruptible, right? And so I think it is like a cop-out. I think a lot of leaders just say that, or a lot of people say that because it's just an easy excuse, but that's just a false assumption from my experience in politics.
And can you talk about what some of those leaders that you Sherpa'd, that you identified and recruited and trained, what they've actually done? Because even in the minority, some of them have done incredible things in Congress. You just ran off a fraction of the New Politics alumni that you've helped send to Congress. And, I could run down the list of achievements of each of them. And if people can remember that they're actually getting stuff done, I think they can get over the cynicism about how corrupt DC is today.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. When Seth first got elected, who was our first candidate, a lot of people said to me, well, he'll just be like everybody else and he's not getting anything done. And actually, at the end of Seth's first term, there were 11 bills that got passed by Democrats only. I think 80 got done by Republicans. Two out of the 11 were Seth. Like, he had gotten 2 of those done. And so I think as a freshman, it just demonstrates the effectiveness and sort of willingness to sort of work with others to get things done that I think a lot of other electeds don't do. And so I just think it's about, like, real leaders can solve problems and get things done. And I think we've seen, you look at the Lugar Center, the bipartisan index score, all of our electeds are high on that list. So they're not only effective, but they're really working with others to get stuff done in this sort of toxic, environment where nothing can get done. I mean, they're really getting things done. And so I just think it's about being a leader means being entrepreneurial, trying to, figure things out and work with others to solve problems. And I think if you come with that frame, you're able to be successful. And I think we've seen that up and down the ballot and in Congress with our electeds.
In addition to reaching across the aisle and getting stuff done, they're also able to take moral stands when it really matters, even when it seems futile. And I'm thinking about Jason Crow as one of the impeachment managers as a junior representative. I mean, extraordinary that House leadership would tap a brand new member of Congress to help lead the impeachment of Donald Trump.
Yep. Yeah. And we're also seeing, we saw at the Democratic convention, Pat Ryan and Alyssa Slotkin had speaking slots, which is pretty unheard of for sort of, their junior level. They haven't been there that long,
Jason
right?
Crow.
And Jason Crow, right? The three of them are really highlighted. And so I think when you're thinking about sort of leadership in the party, they're not afraid to call out their own party. And I think that courage is a common thread with all of our electeds. They just have the courage to do what's right and with moral clarity to really get things done and say what everyone else is thinking, but they just say. And so that's really important in politics is I think there's a lack of courage right now. There are a lot of cowards in elected positions, and we need more courageous leaders who are also battle tested. And that's the other thing I think we're seeing. We have such an unprecedented time in politics, and these are real battle tested leaders, literally battle tested. Like some of them have served in war, and like you, Ken, as well. And others, even if they didn't serve in the military, they've served in really chaotic and complicated spaces where they had to show up and get things done in really stressful situations. And I think that those battle tested leaders are what we need more than ever.
Talk to me about the local level, because that's really where it begins. Very few people go, straight to running for Congress. And that's really where New Politics' strength is in shaping those younger servant leaders. And I would imagine the vast majority of people watching this are wondering what they can do. What can they do?
Yes. And it was interesting when I first thought about the idea of New Politics, I had asked the question of where does everybody come from? How do people get into Congress? And 50% of Congress comes from the state legislature. So it's very much a pipeline. 20% of Congress are former mayors and 20% were former staffers, right? And so when you think about that pipeline, and then in general, the local levels where you affect everyone's lives every day. And so we're seeing around the country, you have James Talarico in Texas as a state rep. He's become a national, TikTok has gone viral, because he has these really incredible messaging and he's not afraid to fight. The governor of Texas and him are in a big fight right now publicly about, education policy. And so to sort of have these platforms that they have because they just sort of had the more clarity, they're not afraid to sort of say what they need to say and fight for what is important. I think we're seeing that around the country, that they're incredible and rising fast. Phil Aleye in Georgia was elected in 2020. He's now, or 2022 actually, and he's now the deputy whip in the Georgia State House. So very fast rising leaders who we're going to see a lot from in the future, running for Congress, running for governor, et cetera.
For those who don't see themselves running, which is fine. I know your main push is to bring new candidates in, but there are 1,000 voters for every candidate, more than that. What can they do to help democracy, help your mission, help amplify and elevate servant leaders?
That's a great question. I think everyone can play a role. So you could volunteer on a campaign, you can work on a campaign. I think a lot of us, for service people, I think those skill sets are really transferable to being a campaign operative. I will never run for office, but I probably should have been a campaign manager in my life had I been asked, right? So I think working on a campaign, and you can work for electeds. If you love policy but don't want to run, you should work for an elected you believe in. But everyone needs to volunteer. Everyone can knock on doors, make phone calls. It doesn't take that many votes to win a race, and it really matters. So I think there's lots of ways that people can get involved and support these servant leaders who decide to run for office.
Where can people learn more?
So the nextmission.us is our website, or newpolitics.org. Either one, it'll take you to either campaign, and we're here to help and happy to talk through what your journey should look like politically.
Great having you on, Emily. Thanks.
It's an honor to be here, Ken. Thank you.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.